Kilian Jornet, welcome back to the podcast. So good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Dylan. It's a pleasure to be back.
What an honor it is to have you here. I think this is our second time doing this officially. Last time was a couple of years ago. It was right around the founding moment of Normal, which was a very exciting time and a brand that I've enjoyed following. And I'm sure it's been a formative and fun project over the course of the last couple of years for you. I think maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in today's show. Of course, you're a couple months removed from what you describe as the biggest, hardest project of your career, Alpine Connections. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about that too. But maybe just starting with a broad, open-ended question here in the moment of transition in terms of seasons, both competitively and between fall and winter. I'm just curious where you are personally, athletically. What are you thinking about in life, in training? What are you focused on right now in November of 2024?
Yeah, well, no, first, thanks for having me here. And yeah, it was like, a couple of years ago when we talked, it was the early or the beginning of Normal. Also, it's been impressive to follow your journey in these years with the free trail that it's building. Really working on the culture of trail running and having this voice. It's pretty good to have you and on that, because it's something that we were missing, I think, at that point, and it's great that you are helping to reach more people and to elevate the culture of this sport that we love. And right now, I'm physically starting to train again, pretty slow. It's very far still until I want to be fast in the summer. So trying to take it easy and just do this pre-season, waiting for the snow. It's snow yet here, so I just try to go out, run a bit, climb a bit, and just start to build for next season. But the recovery from the Alps project, it's been, I think, physically okay. It took a lot of time, more neuromuscularly to recover. It was the biggest impact. And then psychologically also, I think after this kind of big demanding projects, it's you are in the moon and then you go back to Earth, and it takes a bit of time to go back to Earth, I would say.
Yeah, I bet in those 19 days you probably become a totally different person and probably a much more simple individual focused on just putting one foot in front of the other. And then you come back to real life and all of a sudden you got to answer emails again and come on podcasts. So anyway,
Exactly.
Coming back to real life. I wanted to start with family, Kilian. You and Emelie announced a couple months ago, I think, that you're expecting your third child. And of course, before we pressed record, I was telling you about how I'm a dad now too, which has been a really fun new chapter of my life. But I wondered if, as you think about how sport has influenced you as a person, I'm sure there's maybe some lessons that you hope to convey to your children, things about winning and losing and injury, dealing with adversity. Are there any specific lessons from sport that you intentionally try to convey to your daughters?
Well, both Emelie and I, sport, it's kind of in the center of our life. Even if we are not really even if we pretend not to be thinking about the sport all day like we are. So our kids are growing with this atmosphere. But I think especially it's we never talk much about results and victories and the what it means, achievements or that. I think we have a relation with that it's very neutral. For kids it's normal, papa, mama, they run, they ski, they climb. That's what people do. So it's all about for them it's just to be out. It's mostly this connection with nature. I think that's the first thing that we try to embrace us, because kids is not that you can teach them things. They do what what you show. Is you cannot lie to them. Like if you are not walking the talk, like they figure out pretty quick. So we just like to tell them, yeah, why we do sport. It's because we want to be out in nature and just to try to remember the names of the different berries and the birds and like the why mountains are formed that way, like talking to volcanoes or how the plates of the different continents collapse and they form like the ranges where we are going. So it's a lot about nature and this connection to the environment. And then just to be out to move, and I think that's for health. I think just like we see that so many kids they don't move, they don't go out, and so many parents are afraid that the kids go out and hurt themselves and like and it's looking not very good, I think, for the future when we see like more of the health problems related to sedentary lifestyle. So trying to encourage kids to move and to get out and to explore and to just understand that many times you need to try and it's not the first time that they will reach a certain point, but to keep, I think, this connection to nature and exploration in the center of everything. Competition, like even if we are very competitive, I think it's very far in the list of things that we think every day compared to those others.
Yeah. I saw something recently that said, kids don't listen to your advice, they follow your example, which Absolutely. I think is only parents can truly understand, but it's so fundamentally true. And I did wonder about that, like to what degree your kids understand what you and Emelie have been able to achieve in your life and the tension that might exist there. I wonder maybe if Alpine Connections might provide a perfect example for you to just like explain how you as a family interface, like how you convey why is this important to you? Like, why are you doing this? Things like that. Like, how do you communicate that to your kids practically?
Yeah, no, it's fun that when it comes to races, they don't understand really, like, because like we don't have like I don't have any trophy at home. Emelie don't have anything. Like we have given all away, and we don't have any like race related things. And when they were in, like we travel not too often, and when we go to races, it's normally they like quiet places, so they stay with my mom or with Emelie's mom, and we are just racing and then going back, and they want to play. So they don't have this close relation with it, even if they know that sometimes they look the live streams and that. But yeah, in the Alpine Connection, like it was fun that they were following for the first week. And for them, it was just like, yeah, Papa's in the bike, Papa's in the mountain climbing. So it's just like, it's like every day, but just longer. So it's just that I was not going to be there, like to prepare dinner and to sleep. But it was kind of the same. Like it's, I think they were just looking the mountains. Today he's going to those mountains there, and then he will bike there. But yeah, I think it's, I think we don't want to bring this over, to put too much focus on the achievement thing, because achieving it's like I think I think I have a pretty healthy relation with that, but it's a very and I think I have it now, but I think it's many moments that our relation with achievement, with success, on the way that we see a society is not that healthy. And it happened to me probably many times in the past that you put too much emphasis on that and on the external validation or in an internal validation, but maybe from you take the wrong KPIs on what's that validation for. So I think even if we like, or I love racing because it's just a game and it's fun and it's amazing, and I love winning because like I'm very competitor. But trying to take away the importance of achievement and the importance of success on that way. And I think just with the kids, like trying to say, it's just a race, and we are racing, and or like it's just like we are in the mountains and it's beautiful, and it's hard, but sometimes it's easier, and to find that, I think it's what we do. But then kids are very competitive too. Like when they are playing like cards, they don't like to lose. It's they love to win.
Just like mom and dad, probably. Yeah. It's just occurring to me now that just thinking back on your career, was it in like 2010, 2011 you did that Pyrenees crossing trip? Remember an old
2010,
Solomon,
yeah.
2010. And I remember the story around that of being, and I think one of the things that's made you so interesting is the confluence of nature and nurture in your career. Like clearly you have this natural God-given talent, but also you were born into a family who took you walking through the Pyrenees at, basically when the rest of us are barely crawling around a house in a suburban neighborhood. I don't know if there's any reflections that you have from that or from your childhood, from Emelie's childhood that you maybe now try to mirror in your own family life, the values of just spending a life outside and exposing your children to mountain environments. Before we move off this subject, I'm asking because I'm a dad myself.
It's hard to figure out like how like we take the kids to walks. Like tomorrow it's Saturday, so we are planning, which summit we will go and where can they hike and still be fun and that. So it's a lot about that. Of course, we try to encourage them to go and to keep it fun. But sometimes they are tired and it's hard to understand or to know at what point it's to push them too much or not to push them at all. Because I remember when I was a kid, sometimes I was like also saying, I'm tired, I want to go back. And then 10 minutes after I was like super happy that we went there because we saw those animals and those things. And so I think it's hard to find what's the good amount to keep them fun. But I think it's just to take it easy and I think what I've learned on that is not to have any expectation, just to say, okay, like we are going there to have fun, and it doesn't matter if we reach that point or if we do that or if not. Like it's fun. Like some days, they will be super motivated, and we will do a much longer hike than we had planned. And many days, it will be just shorter, and we will find some animals, and we will spend 1 hour looking to those animals or to collect nuts in the forest, and not to have expectations and not to have. And to be present, I think also and that's something. I think it's hard, to be present, especially today. We have so many distractions.
Yeah.
To say, my work is to train, and I know that I'm training when they are in kindergarten. But when we are home, I don't do things. Work is from when they are sleeping. Interviews is when they are sleeping. Yeah. I don't do when. These things the weekends, I train I don't train much in the weekend because I don't want to be doing things with them thinking, I need to put 3 hours of running. No, weekends it's just something short and then just spending time with them. So to be comfortable with that, I think it's very important for them to not feel this pressure that you are thinking about something else.
So
and
awesome.
For you also to live with them, but also for not feeling stressed that you need to do other things when you are with them. So it took us some time to figure out all that, but I think we are hopefully arriving there.
Yeah. The one thing parenting really forces is an improvement in the efficiency of how you use your time. And there's nothing more guilt-inducing than when you are supposed to be present and available mentally and physically for your children and being consumed or thinking about work or other less important things. Anyway, thanks for entertaining me with that. It's fun to chat with you about fatherhood and sport and how it relates to, raising the next generation. But as an observer of yours, of course, I want to talk about some of the more timely stuff, specifically what you've done this season. It seems like you had 3 main goals going into the year: Zegama, Sierre Zinal, things that you've done many, many times, and this new project, Alpine Connections. So let's spend some time talking about all 3. Maybe talking about Zegama first. It feels like this might be an interesting lens to get your perspective on just the step change that's happened in the sport recently. This was your 11th victory, going back 17 years at this iconic event. And you wrote afterwards on your Mountain Athletes blog about how the last 2 runnings at Zegama have been your best, even though you are getting older. You do have a lot of other obligations with family, normal, and other stuff. But it might be a good opportunity to have you provide your perspective on just how the sport has changed, because now you're running 20 minutes faster at Zegama than you did only maybe like a decade ago. And it's probably as a result of the fact that the sport has forced you to rise to a new level. I'd love to have you comment on that.
Yeah, and no, absolutely. I think the sport has it has nothing to, if 20 years ago, you would say that today, we will be professionals doing running in the mountains, that it will be live streamings and an industry with podcasts. They didn't exist at that time, but anyway, that podcast and TV shows and this recognition of the sport, and it would be not in any mind. I remember those first years, all the races, it was all the same people. Any race you were going, it was maybe the 100, 150 people, and it was always the same faces. You could recognize everyone, and that was in any level, locally, internationally. So it was a very much smaller community. I was the crazy one to go running in the mountains and to train when I was in high school. It was what's that? You need to really explain what I was doing. Yeah. So it changed a lot on that. Today, we know that it's millions of participants globally. That we know that it's the reach to other people. It's big, and also that the diversity of the perfusion of the sport into different communities. It's also much bigger. Before it was also a much smaller community. It was kind of very mountain people that was doing the races. At least here in Europe, it was people living in cities or close to the mountains, but with a kind of a mountain culture, and it was kind of pretty close. And today, we see people coming from very different backgrounds, from different lifestyles, and that's very, very interesting, and it's great. Even if we have a long way to go, especially on that, on the diversity of the sport. Mm. But I think then when it comes to competition, I think talent, it's always been there. If we look in the past, I don't think that we are better today than was Marco De Gasperi or Jonathan Wyatt, or it was Billy Vance or Kenny Stewart, or these people were freaks. They were genetically, they were great, and they were training hard. It's just that first competition elevates competition. If you are probably the difference is the density. That today, 10 years ago, maybe from the first one to the 10th one, it was in a marathon distance race. Maybe it was 20 minutes. Today is maybe 5 minutes. So that's the difference. I don't think that the difference is on absolute level, but on the density. Yeah. And then just that we learn from things on the past, and that's why we progress. I don't think it's that because genetically we are better, but it's because you see what the others are doing and you improve, and you have this communication with other athletes, and we have better training. Now it's also we are professionals, so we can dedicate more time. and all the other things that they evolved, like on knowing like nutrition wasn't a thing like at all, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In the ultras, we were just eating like, first time I ran Western States, I didn't have a bottle like with water in my hands. It was just like, yeah, it's aid station, so I will bring whatever it is in the aid station. So like it's changing like drastically all that, but also like when it comes to more specific training. So I would say evolution has been there like all other sports because that, and especially thing like the density, it's been changing, and we still have a lot of margin there, I would say, in the elite, of course, like we are seeing now in races like Zegama, Sierre Zinal, like much more people like coming from the East Africa, that it's super exciting because it's making the races much more dense on that level. But then we have a lot of work to do also, like with diversity more all across the peloton of the race with we still kind of a sport that it's mainly white, kind of middle class, high class. It's expensive sport, even if like it shouldn't be, because it's kind of basic. So we still have a lot of work to do there.
Yeah, it's really interesting on the nutrition point. I was in Hawaii last week at a Red Bull event, and I had a chance to speak with Ian Walsh, who's a iconic big wave surfer from Maui, Hawaii. And he was talking about how the Red Bull athlete performance team had gotten him on the carbs. So this carbohydrate conversation is now bleeding into, is in surfing. Wow. So he was talking about how he's doing like 30 grams of carbs when he's going out to Jaws to surf for 6 hours of 30 grams an hour. I was like, come on, dude, you got to up those numbers. But anyway, it is funny, like things are always moving and advancing. And you having been at Zegama for 17 years, you've had just the perfect perspective to see the microcosm of that at that race. And I actually wanted to ask you about Elhusin specifically, because he finished second to you at Zegama this year. He's been one of the stories of the season, at least for me, winning the Golden Trail World Series, also a normal athlete. So I'd imagine you've gotten to know him a little bit. And of course, in the US, we haven't gotten to know Elhusin quite as much, aside from him coming over and winning both of the races on the Golden Trail World Series this year. But love to have you just share your comments or perspective on Elhusin, his season coming out of nowhere, and what he's been able to accomplish.
Yeah, no, Elhusin, like he's been actually running for like 5 years, I think, already in the Golden Trail Series and in races here in Europe, and he has been always very talented. But I think he needed some support and some more belief, I think, on him, because he's been super good, like in competitions in the past years. If you look the past year results, he was like 4 position many times in important races like Zegama, like in the Dolomites, and so he was missing this like belief that he could win races to start this what's been doing this year. And I think it's like he's talented. Like that's not doubt about it, because like even like he was doing like some things on training that it was like, really, like after a race you need to rest a bit, maybe, like not to start like training the day after, like I feel tired, and it's like, yeah, of course, and very basic things, and he didn't have this knowledge. So like he was a raw talent. And then, I'm super happy that he's part of the normal team, that he's there and he's bringing like a lot to us, not only with the results. Of course, like he's winning races and that's great. But like he, as a person, he's so gentle. He's so humble. Like he's always like he's a nice guy, and you can say like he's a berber. Berber is it's a community that they live in the desert and in the Atlas Mountains in the Morocco. Yeah. And it's a very very open culture and a very they live in the desert. They are nomads. So this way of like sharing and moving around, like open to other things, it really reflects on him. I think this year it's been just like he's been like athletically, I think, just showing his potential and showing that what he can do, and with a bit more better training and a bit better nutrition. Very small things I think he needed to change, and the belief to be able to win these races. I think that's what he changed, and we are great not only for that, but also that he can start to talk, to explain his history and who is he, because like it's hard, like because like as I mentioned before, like it's a wide sport, and even if we want to talk like as what with the kids, like walk the talk, like if we want a sport that is more inclusive, we need to start there.
Totally.
And giving tools, like Elhusin didn't speak a word of English last year at that point, and he learned so quickly. Like now he can do interviews.
I want to get him on the show.
Just that, yeah. So I think that's great. Like it's just like we need to, as the industry, like we need to work on that, like to bring more voices and to support athletes because they can do amazing things if we help them.
Yeah, so well said. Talking about your training real quick on your Mountain Athletes blog, which by the way is so fantastic, Kilian. I love that you take the time to write that stuff down. Like that will ultimately be just a massively valuable catalog. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the vision for the future of Mountain Athletes, but you posted something specifically about your training this year in 2024. And there's a couple of things that I wanted you to expand upon that I think are lesser appreciated, because of course, when people look at your training on Strava or whatever, they're probably looking at your key sessions, your total volume. But you also mentioned things like circadian rhythm and stress management. And it made me want to ask you just about lifestyle design and how that becomes conducive to performance, like the things that you do outside of the pure training, specifically circadian rhythm, stress management, and how that helps you be the athlete you are.
Yeah, no, and the background about that, it's mostly like we are focusing a lot on the sessions, on the training we do, but and it's important. Like if you don't train, you don't perform. That's for sure. But the effects of these stimuli that we are bringing will have completely different adaptations depending on like how we are, and it's been like some studies of like giving to different different people the same training stimuli, and one group like they were believing on it, like they believe on the training plan, and the other group like they make them not just saying that's not to believe on the training plan. And even if they were doing the same sessions and exactly same training, the results were completely different. So like at the end, like, you need to train, but it's more important if you are able to make adaptations and to adapt from those stimuli and that lifestyle and how we are, like it's key. Like if we are on inflammatory, if we are inflamed, and we are bringing like when we do a training session, we inflame the body. So if we inflammate on an inflammation, we will not be able to make an adaptation because the body will be fighting on that. So we need to have a body that it's not inflamed for the first, and then like of course, like with the inflammations that we are doing on the training, on the different stimuli, then the body will have the capacity to adapt. So that's something that I believe that it's more and more important, especially when you age. Like I think when you are young, like it's also easier. You have also like less things to worry, less stress. So like in general, you have less inflammation. But so to have that a bit what I was talking in the beginning, also like to just schedule the training sessions, like to not feel the need that you are not in the place you want to be at that moment, because like then you are always stressing, and stress, like it's like training is a stress, and life stress is another. So like if you are adding on that, like it's just not good. So like first to try to manage lifestyle with all the things you do, and feel good with it, because if not, it's nothing. It's really good at the end. And then like for that also, like the circadian rhythms, like I've seen like now that it's the more routine that I'm able to do, like the better I perform, the better I can eat, the better I can recover from things. And it's just because the body, it knows its ways, it knows what it's doing, and it can start to make adaptations, or to start recovering, to start to do these shortcuts that knows over time. If we are changing that all the time, the body don't knows what to do. If yeah, especially if it's in a long term, of course, like a race or a project like that, that's like a huge stress to the body. But if it's stress every day of your life, that's just a chronic stress, and it's chronic inflammation. So that's like yeah, that's the big problem. It's not about like bringing big stress for one period of time, but it's about like chronic stress, and try to avoid that.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about circadian rhythm in particular, because of course there's the implication when you talk about that you're talking about sleep, which is of course a topic of conversation in sport and performance more and more over the course of the last decade or so. But beyond just your sleep routine, there's other elements of circadian rhythm and rhythm in general that it feels like you're tapping into with that insight, that I think is really interesting to think about. Just the routine of when you eat, when you work, when you play with your kids, and the physiological response to those things, and the body's ability to adapt to a routine specifically over time. Very interesting.
No, and also like as athletes, and like we get a lot of opportunities of doing things, of racing, of going to places, and it's like to be able to choose which of them are worth it and which of them are not. I would say also like that's something that over the years I learned that is more important, because those things, like of course, like travel to go to, I don't know, like conferences,
anywhere,
or like prize givings, or like ceremonies, and all this shit. Like it's breaking everything, and like it's so like if you can avoid it, like, so it's always like on cost benefit, no? So yeah,
it's
of
so
course
true.
We need to make a living. But it's like, to which point, like it's worth it or not, and to which point is worth it to have either more money or more time, or either. So it's always a balance, and you need to figure out which is the good, but not to try to take everything at the time because you can, because it's to think in the long term. Okay, what that will mean in this for the next race, but also for next year, for the next decade.
Yeah. Wow. So interesting to think about, and something that I can certainly apply better in my own life. It was so interesting to hear you just make that comment about that study that was done between people who believe in their training and people who, for whatever reason, there's doubt introduced into the efficacy of the training, and how that actually impacts the effectiveness of the training itself. Say more about
crazy.
that, or maybe the better question is to ask you about moments in your career where you've doubted what you're doing and how that's impacted you. Because I think one of the things that unites all the great athletes, like the truly transcendent athletes, is their belief, right? In what they're doing. And to the extent we can cultivate that in ourselves, it's a valuable thing. So maybe any examples from your career where you feel like belief really set you over the top, or a lack of belief held you back?
Yeah, no, it's I think one moment was probably 2012 and 2013 after after the in 2012 during crossing the Alps we had an accident and a friend of mine died. So after after that, like I was feeling kind of a lot of guilt. Like he was older, had kids, and I was just a kid. So like a lot of guilt, like why him, not me, and so like the 1 2 years after, even like I was not in a good place, and I was racing, I was winning, and just because I think there it was just because like talent and because like the work I was doing, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it was like not not really. Yeah, I was for long. I was trying to prove if it was a mistake that I was still alive, kind of.
Yeah.
So it was a lot on that. And the other time, I think it was um, 2000. When was like 2020 that I did a bit more like road running, and I think it was also mostly because I didn't have anything really in trail running that it was kind of inspiring me to do. And I had some projects that I wanted to do, but I felt some pressures like to go to another direction. And it was like, it's, I trying to convince myself that, I want to do that. But in reality, probably I wanted to go to do other things, more like in the mountains and more like that. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that was also I got a lot of a lot of injuries, and I think it was just like that. I learned a lot. Also, I don't regret at all because I learned a lot, and probably that was like a moment
Mm.
to to develop other capacities and also to prioritize what I wanted to do in the future and to do some changes for going to that direction. But yeah, it was some periods where my belief system was a bit fractured.
Huh. It's interesting you talk about learning because it feels to me like you are a person who really enjoys the learning process. And maybe this is a good opportunity to just speak about Sierre Zinal in particular, because you won for the 10th time this year, broke your own course record there. And as you posted, again, you're running as well as you ever have in your mid 30s with two kids at a time when theoretically people are supposed to be slowing down. And you, I know, are a student of learning about training theory, training science, and things like that. So practical things that you're doing now that you weren't doing in your mid 20s that are allowing you to compete at the highest level in these races that are only a couple of hours, as opposed to what we'll talk about next, the pure endurance and suffering exercises like Alpine Connections. But tell me a little bit about what you've learned about aging and performance, especially with these higher intensity, higher end events like Sierre Zinal.
Yeah, no, that's what motivates me today. Like on racing, it's just like I don't feel that I want to do that race or that other, but it's just to have good opportunities to test like what you think it's possible. And so like Sierre Zinal is a perfect example because it's a race that that if you want to have good motivation to run hard, you can go there. Like it's not that you will run hard. Like you cannot like win easy that race. So that's that was the perfect excuse. And I think what I learned mostly is to put the focus on fewer things. Like from 2007 till 2000, I don't know, 15, 16, I was doing like between ski mountaineering and trail running like seasons with 50 races. So in summer it was just every weekend like doing races like did a lot of I think like the year of the Pyrenees, for example, 2010, it was doing was doing the Pyrenees, and then 1 week after it was Western States, and then I did like I think it was Sierre Zinal, UTMB. No, it was UTMB started, then we went to Kima. So it was like every week I'm doing a race. So that can work to a certain point, but performance-wise, it's not the more clever. So I think, and especially with aging, that recovery takes a longer time. I think that to race, you can continue racing a lot, but just to not race at your full potential, to go like soup all the time, or either racing less and trying to perform better. And because the body is still creating adaptations, I think in many levels, like I see that my physiology is better than when I was 25, just because it's been evolving and I have now these adaptations that has been creating over time. But I know that recovery it's taking longer and that I will not be able to replicate that performance every weekend of the year. So understanding that, I think it's key. And then it's just like knowing what is working for me, and to try to do it well and to prepare it well, and then I think it's possible to keep performing. Also, putting the focus. I think it's also like on the motivation side, like what motivates me, like why I want to go to Sierre Zinal and just suffer as much as I can to perform, because when you are younger, early career, it's easy to push to the maximum in the races because you are always like progressing and discovering, and you have not experienced yet those things. But right now, I think when you are older, it's easier to just not give the 100% because you say, you have other things, and you can say, okay, in training maybe it's not the reward it's lower, the reward, of course. So if you have maybe just like fewer goals a year, it's easier to motivate yourself for it.
Well, that's interesting because for me, it's not clear as to why you would do Sierre Zinal other than to finally get the 10th victory there. But is it to just continue to push yourself to get a little bit better against the best athletes in the world as the density of the sport continues to accelerate, or is it just to figure out whether the science experiments that you're running on yourself for training are working? Like, is that the motivation at this point for you, or is competition still the pinnacle?
No, competition is the excuse. Competition is the excuse to motivate yourself on training. And that's meaning for example, this year, performance-wise, I'm more happy on my time in my training hill that I have here behind, because I know that that's a better performance than what I did at Sierre Zinal because the conditions. So performance-wise, I'm more happy from that. But I need to have Sierre Zinal to motivate myself to train very hard. So because if not, cool. it's hard to. I know that the Sierre Zinal, it will be like Philemon and Patrick and Remy and all these guys that they are training hard. So if I want to win them, I need to train very hard. So that's the carrot to train well, and then to figure out to train well what it means. It means to do these sessions and to do this to change the physiology that way or to do those. So competition at the end is just the carrot, and it doesn't matter really how the race it goes at the end. Of course you are happier if you win, but it really doesn't matter. But to be able to train that way and to experiment all that, I think I'm probably a bit stupid and I need the carrot still, but that's competition is just that.
It's so funny. I love that you're more proud of the uphill time trials you've done on your local training hill than Sierre Zinal, but you needed Sierre Zinal in order to push you to that level. All right, let's spend the rest of our time talking about Alpine Connections, which began only days after Sierre Zinal. I think it was only 2 or 3 days later. So just start with the original inspiration. Again, if we look at your season in totality, Zegama, Sierre Zinal, both of which you've done over 10 times. You've won them both over 10 times. And then this new novel, very different project. So tell us about the initial inspiration. What drew you to this Alpine Connections adventure?
Yeah, it's kind of a construction that it comes over many years. I would say it comes probably the first seed. It was when I was living in Chamonix. I was doing this I did in Nominata, in Mont Blanc, like a route fast, and I started to do like some more like the climbing the north faces of like Matterhorn, Jurassic, Eiger. I'm trying to do it fast, and then from there, like seeing that I could move fast in the mountains, to start to think about, maybe it's possible to do to link up all the summits in the like Couronne Imperiale is to link 5 summits in Valais, or like to do like I don't know, Arête du Brouillard and Grand Jurassic, to think about these. I thought very long link ups at the time, because they had been done like some of them like 1 or 2 times before. So that was what I had like 10 years ago. It was my motivation on doing this kind of projects. But some of them I did, some of them I didn't do. Like I thought it was over my reach of capacities.
Mm-hmm.
But it was there. And then especially I think last year doing the Pyrenees, that I did like a 8-day link up of all the 3,000, most of the 3,000 meter summits. That unlock, it really unlocked kind of a new dimension to me, because then I was saying, okay, it's possible to be for doing this kind of long link ups, but not only for one day, but for many days, because it's very different when you do like one push style thing, that you are for whatever it is, like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours. You can do like a 60-hour push, like just like being climbing and linking summits, and it's just one big day. And that I knew that I could do it. Yeah. But to go from there to do like this one push, but for 8 days, just this mentality of saying I'm doing a long push, but it's just like a 8-day push, just climbing. And I think it's a bit different from like trail running, where you can just run tired and it doesn't matter. Here you need to be like fully concentrated, because like it's the biggest impact is the cognitive one. Like that's like where the play is there. Like you need to be fully concentrated. The brain is the organ that spends the most energy, and you need to commit for this long time. So like to do like this 8-day one push was saying, okay, maybe I can start to look at those things I wanted to do in the Alps, but not think about only one thing, but just to how can it be possible to link all of them. And then it's just some satellite summits, like they are not on these ranges, but they are still 4,000. So like how to do this, link all these summits in a way that you don't need to stop when you are in the range. So just stop when you go down from one range, you take the bike to the next range, then you can rest on the bike and sleep a bit. But just when you are on the range, just to kind of more or less keep going. And that was kind of the idea behind. And it was a lot of doubts, because conditions, it's impossible to have good conditions for all the duration and for all the different ranges, that they have very different characteristics.
Yeah, it looked like, just from the content that was posted on your account and through Normal's page, that the conditions were pretty challenging. I wanted to ask you more about this concentration thing, because you mentioned that in your write-up also, and that like just being so concentrated for that period of time is in itself exhausting. You mentioned that the brain is the organ that uses the most energy. And this is a pretty fascinating, I think, element for our listeners here, especially if you compare it to some of the long trail FKT type stuff that happens here in the US and in Europe. You know, for example, Tara Dower just broke the record on the Appalachian Trail. Amazing. Took her 40 plus days.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So cool. But
to also follow. Like Right, but it's different, right? Like she, of course, has to be concentrated to some degree, but it's not as if she's in super exposed technical terrain that have this high consequence, more or less. So say more about the concentration and the exhaustion of prolonged concentration.
Yeah, no, I think that's the hardest is that from when you start, from when you start, you are like first like thinking about what you are expecting, and I think the success of this thing is not to put yourself in the like when we run a race. Normally we think always like positive, like we visualize the race and we try to visualize on a positive way, like say, okay, yeah, I will fly there, I will run, I will win the race, and you bring all this positive energy. I think that in the mountain sometimes it has a it can be bad in a way that if you are thinking always on like I will be perfect conditions, I will be climbing fast, when the problem comes, and it will come, like maybe you have overestimate yourself. So you have to think, okay, in case imagine that I'm climbing there and it's a big rock falling, or I fall, or like I fall in a crevasse, do I have the tools, I mean knowledge and physical tools and that to escape from this situation? So when you start the journey, let's say like this stage, like it's 2, 3, 4, 5 days ahead of you, that will be kind of until you can go down again and relax a bit.
Yeah.
Like, do I have everything I need physically, mentally, experience to survive in the worst case scenario? So you are on that until you reach the technical section, and then it's just like you are thinking every step and every centimeter. Like it's really no past, no future. Is you are just like living that instant. Like, and it's fun that many times like you are so concentrated, you think you don't have a memory of time. You think it's been 5 minutes since I started. You look at the watch, it's been like 12 hours. So it's really like you are living on that moment, and then it's like it's exposed. Like I don't know like the average, but like maybe if every day I was like 20 hours of activity, of these 20, maybe 15, 16, it was like if I do a single mistake, I die. So like so you need to be very concentrated, like on where you put your hands, your feet, the conditions, the rock, like and of course it's days and days. Like days it's better rock and it's easier, and some days it's just like you are just like very kind of not stress, I would say. Like I think the success of that, I'm talking with some friends that they follow me like for some summits, were talking like the more difficult thing, it was that just to be committed and to be concentrated for like 20 hours a day, sleep 1 hour, and then like continue like so to be mentally prepared to be like disconcentrate all the time, and not be stressed, because if you are like afraid or stressed all the time, like it's impossible to just keep going. So that was interesting, that we were trying to monitor many things, and one was that after every long stage, like my neural my cognitive status was like same as if I had been in a car accident.
Wow.
But just like sleeping 1 hour, I was I was reset completely. I was back to base levels. So that was one thing, and that was the accumulation and all the stress. But then in some especially like in Mont Blanc area, conditions were like very, very bad. Everything was falling. So it was some moments like that they were stressful, I would say. The rest, it was just like you need to be concentrated, but the stress is not that big. But there it was like one moment that I had some big rock falls. I was falling. I got like one time like everything fall, and I just keep like one hand on a rock that I was thinking, okay, I hope this rock don't fall, because if not I fall like 100 meters. So, but it was good that after this situation, that it boosts the adrenaline, it boosts the cortisol, heart rate, like all these fight to fight response. that I was able to, after a few seconds, to calm, to shoot all that down and to get back to be relaxed. So I was able to take good decisions, to not not spend too much energy. So that was kind of the key of success in this project.
So interesting. So in thinking about what we've just talked about, fear, stress, fight or flight, you say in your blog on Mountain Athletes that, you did make some decisions that you're not proud of, probably like taking unnecessary risks, maybe as a result of concentration. But on the other side of the spectrum, you talk about the flow state that you achieved out there too. And I'm sure the audience would love to hear you speak a little bit about that. I pulled one of the excerpts from your post-race write-up. I'll make sure to link to it in the show notes. But what you say is just a bullet point. You say, I flowed. On some of the ridges, I didn't feel the strain. I felt a deep connection with the mountain. The effort didn't exist anymore. The time was stopped. My body wasn't anymore, but one with the environment. It's for these moments that I live for. So, of course, I don't need you to articulate all 19 days, but share a little bit about that metaphysical, spiritual, like connection with the mountains that you were able to find out there.
Yeah, no, it's that of course, like why to do these things is because those moments and those moments are the majority, I would say, or the most part of it. Especially, I remember that day, like that was. I don't know if it was like 10 days in the project or so, or it was the last day of the ballet. So I had been like 5 days in the ridges. And then I was doing the last summit. It was the sunset. It was the last 2 hours of sun. It's a very long route, climbing route, very far out and a bit technical. And it was just like, I could see like it was a broken spectrum following me all over the climb, and I was flowing. Like I didn't feel like, I was wondering like, is that real or I'm in a dream? It's that like I couldn't feel myself. It was just like everything like was one, and I think it's those connections that those connections with you inner yourself and with all the environment that you really feel that the rock, the wind, the sounds of the silence that you are there, and it's all one. Like you don't feel that it's not a you and another. Like all the atoms, all the particles are like connecting to each other.
Yeah, so cool. A few more things before I let you go. Do you have a few more minutes, Kilian?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's good. Like kids are sleeping very early here at home, so we have good evenings.
I want to be respectful of your time here. I know it's after dark there, but I think a couple of things that stood out for me. Number one, just as a fan of yours and a gearhead myself, it was really fun to see the all the new normal product that you were wearing on the mountain. And, I talked to Jordi and Cito, as you know, recently, and he said that some of that stuff you personally were prototyping. And of course, I know one of your key passions as an athlete and as a human being is the equipment that you bring into the mountains. I'm sure the listeners would be interested to hear you talk about like how you were personally prototyping the things that you brought with you on this project.
Yeah, no, it's some of the majority of the gear, it was like from the things that we have been building, like the shoes, for example. They were a rain shoe, like it was the shoe that everyone can find in the shop. So not any prototype there. But then like in apparel, like we are looking for something, so we were doing that. But then like backpack, like for example, I had a prototype, but then I wanted to change some things. So I was doing home, and I have a cobbler here in the village that I was telling him if he could like put this special carabiner there to hang the gear when I was climbing, or to put the rope that it could go out, or Same with some of the crampons, like it's not an advice of people to do, but like to take the crampons and to cut some pieces and to merge all together to make the perfect fit for running shoes, to be able to climb like ice for real. So trying to do these all these small things. So the gear could be everything I needed, but not more than that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. The media impact was also interesting to talk to Jordi and Cito about. They said that the impressions were measurably larger than even when you won UTMB a couple of years ago. And Greg Valle posted something, I recall, about how he viewed this Alpine Connections project as being like a beautiful, creative, artistic contribution to mountain sport and mountain sport history. Talk about that a little bit, like the creativity that goes into coming up with the route. Obviously, we've just talked about the creativity and the gear. And obviously, there's probably some creative elements that went into the execution. Maybe any things that come to mind as we mention artistic creativity as it applies to Alpine Connections?
Yeah, well, I think like sport and especially mountaineering is an art. It's not it's more an art than a sport or like than a physical activity. Like I think physical activity is one thing, like it's the execution maybe and the things you need to do, but the idea behind how you track the line, like that was kind of, I wanted to make a line that was aesthetic, like that if you were a bird and you were like drawing a line, it has some logic, that it was not just like to go up and back all the summits, but just to find the line that it made that it was beautiful to follow, like visually on the ridges and to navigate there. So that was very important for me, and I think that's sometimes that's just like I overdo a bit of that. Like sometimes when I train, like I'm just like doing a ridge home, and it's like, no, I need to go down the ridge that direction because it's much more aesthetically. If you were like a bird and you were like, it just makes so much more sense, even if it's much more difficult. But the aesthetics of it's very, very important. And then on the execution, it's a bit the same, like how you can execute that on a way that is aesthetic. And I think what's aesthetic when it comes to mountaineering is the availability to be able to do things on a way that it's moving, that it's we mentioned the flow before, and that should reflect the style on a way that that you are flowing. So it's kind of this non-stop and try to be minimalistic on the way of creating these connections. I think that was what was his name, Michael Brandon or something like that. It was a free soloist, and he said like climbing naked, barefoot, without chalk, that's climbing. Anything from there is a compromise. So yeah, like try to find like the lesser compromise to do things. Of course, we need to make a lot of compromises. We need to tie gear. We need to
of course,
to eat, to sleep. But like aesthetically, like the idea of like this flow and just being the human and the nature. I think that's kind of the part of the aesthetics of these kind of activities.
I love it. What a beautiful quote. And I don't know. I'm glad I asked that question, because as I look at the Strava activity, which I have up here on my computer, there is intention behind it. You know, if you were to take that elevation profile and the line that you drew through the Alps and hang it on the wall in the Louvre, there's a certain element of art to it. So congratulations on that.
I was a bit disappointed. It was 2 points because the weather, I couldn't do what I intended to do. And I went, that day I couldn't do exactly how I wanted to do it. Yeah.
That's probably how Picasso felt about his great works of art and his masterpieces. But now you can step back and observe it. And even with those imperfections, appreciate the journey that it provided you. All right, one last thing before I let you go, Kilian, and I have to ask you this. Next year, you probably know this, but the internet last week discovered that you're signed up for the Chianti Trail in Italy next year, which is a golden ticket race for Western states. I'm sure it also has qualification implications for UTMB and the World Series there. It's been since 2011 since you came here to California to run Western states. So again, I have to ask you, is that, are you going to run Chianti, and is there any other distant ambitions beyond it?
Well, first, as you mentioned at the beginning, like we are waiting for a kid, and the kid is coming to in the spring. So like a lot will depend on that. Like even if I want to say like I have this plan, like it can change very quickly. But I'm registered at Chianti, and I have never run the race, and it's a beautiful area, but it's not the goal of the season. I will say of course, only it will depend on on the baby at that time, and how it's when it's coming, what we want to do, how we can travel together. But it's if I have the opportunity, Western, it's always exciting race, and it's been more than 10 years since I was there, so it's been changing a lot.
Okay, Kilian. Well, this is some exciting stuff to keep us all engaged with trail running and trail running news now through the winter months. I hope there's probably a lot of people who are already registered who will be chasing golden tickets, who will take a lot of inspiration into their off season and their base building next year, knowing that it could potentially be that Kilian returns. And it will be, Kilian, the 15-year anniversary of the Unbreakable year at Western States 2010. Where, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, you approach the course without water. We grow and we learn. We grow and we learn a lot. Well, Kilian, thank you so much for doing the podcast, man. I deeply appreciate it. I'm a massive admirer and fan of yours, both in what you've achieved as an athlete, as a family man, now with your business career with Normal and everything that you guys are working on there. So, just a big gratitude for coming and sharing some of these insights with the audience.
No, thank you. And likewise, you are doing a great job for this community, and I'm happy to be here in this platform to build a bit on the trail community and this amazing sport that we enjoy, that we love it, and that it brings us so much joy. And even if we suffer sometimes, it gives us a big part of our lives.
Thank you so much, Kilian. We'll talk soon.